Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I hope and trust that everyone is doing well. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Inshallah, today's class is a very exciting, very important class, and things will be a little take a different turn. So inshallah, in today's class, there are going to be many words, many examples. What I would like you to do from this class on, we're going to do a lot of words as examples, especially now since we are doing some of the challenging letters. We will start today with some of the most challenging letters that people usually struggle with. So we're going to do a lot of examples. And some of these letters, it takes a long time, as you will see, to really get to master them, which is fine. The secret is to mastering the pronunciation of the letters, like mastering the pronunciation of any of letters of any language, is practice, and specifically good practice, guided practice, and that's the goal of the class today and the future classes, is to set you on the right track, especially with the challenging letters. With that, we start. So today we'll be doing 4 letters. The first letter is going to be the letter Sheen, and its sister, the letter Sheen. These 2 letters are quite simple in terms of their sound, and we're going to go through them very quickly so that we can get to this letter over here, the Saad, and his sister, the letter Daad. Okay, so let's start with these 2 letters. As I said in for the first lesson, right? When we look at letters, obviously the letters can have shapes, different shapes in a word. What you want to do is you want to focus on the shape or the patterns that never change. You want to focus on the patterns in the letter that never change no matter what. For example, how many dots are there? How many lines is it? Like that. Because in a word, and especially in different fonts as well, the shapes change. So you don't focus on the finer detail, like the shape of the dots. Is it a square dot? Is it a triangle dot? Just know that they are dots and be flexible with the rest. So that will help you so not get confused and overwhelmed. When you look at different fonts and you see the letter might come look different. Okay. I'm getting some people are saying that is anyone else having a problem with from my side? Can you not hear me clearly? Can you see my screen? No sound. No problem, can hear and see. Okay, so let's carry on in the meantime, inshallah. Okay, so let's go. I'm sorry about that. See if you can get some help. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's start with the first letter, the letter Sheen. So the letter Sheen, quite simple letter. Let's get through it quickly. So if you look at this letter Sheen, let's see how it looks in a word. Firstly, let's say, if you look at the shape of the letter Sheen, I want you to focus on this over here. This 3, you can call it a teeth, right? 1, 2, 3. And this is important because, you know, the letter, like we've done the letter Ba and the letter Tha and Ta have basically one line in the middle of a word. However, this is becoming important because here it's going to be 3, but it's 1 letter. And then there's a half a circle. Okay, so let's see in a letter over here. If you look at this point over here, you'll see this is the scene in the beginning of a word. You'll see that the half a circle was taken away. There we go. And a connector was added. And that's how you have that word over there. Let's see in the middle of a word. You'll see the same thing that happened in the beginning of the word, except that now we have a connector on the other side, connecting it to the letter before. But you'll see the primary shape stays the same. And like we said, at the end of a word, the letter generally maintains its original shape. And linked to our previous lesson, the second last lesson that we done, we spoke about semicursive letters, which means the semicursive letters does not join to the letter following it, right, to the left. And that's why the Sheen over there is not joined. Let's look at the Sheen sister, the letter Sheen, that we're going to speak about the sound in a moment. Same thing, 3 teeth and a half a circle. The primary shape is over here. That's the pattern that never changed, and the dots. Let's see in the beginning of a word. Let's see what happened there. And you see the tail was cut off. Cut off. And a connector was added. In the middle of a word, same shape. And from the other side, it's just joined. But the primary shape really stayed the same. Maybe some of the edges look a bit different. And that's fine. And at the end of the word, the letter maintains its original shape. It's not joined to the letter before because the letter before is a semi-cursive letter. So that's just doing some revision as well to what we spoke about in previous lessons. Okay, let's move on to the sound of the letter. Very simple. Once you got the pattern of how this letter looks, the letter Sheen, one without the dots, the name is Sheen. That's literally the name, like when you say, I've seen, that's exactly how the letter's name is pronounced, Sheen. And obviously, we look at the sound from the first letter there, the S, Sheen, and that is the sound of the letter. Okay, so it has like a S sound, like biscuit, biscuit. It's that exact sound in biscuit, the S over there. Okay, so as usual, let's get 10 words with that sound over there to make sure that you got the sound of the Sheen. Can I have 10 words with the S sound in there? Sun, perfect. That's one. Okay, I need from a different person. So one word, set, sound, sort, snake. Okay, I want some word with the sound in the middle or the end. Okay, sister, that's very good because there's s in the beginning, in the middle, sofa, master, sight, we had snake, distract, perfect, blister, mistake, happiness, massage, mosque, right? I think that's about 10. Perfect. Excellent. That's exactly the sound of the Sheen. That's the sound of the Sheen with no vowel. And we're going to speak about, we're going to apply that soon. So how are we going to go about this? So with every letter that we do, we're going to apply all the concepts that we've done one by one on each letter, and we'll go through some words with them over. So what I want you to do is participate with me, right? Because this is like a practice. Look at this as a practice session as well. So you can repeat with me as well. So here we go. Sheen with a fatha. Sa. 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 Let's see in a word we have over here. Ha. Sa. Da. Hasada. Okay. Sheen with a kasra. Si. 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 Let's see in a word. Kha. Si. Ra. Kha. Si. Ra. Now, also going back to what we spoke about, I think that could have been lesson 5 or 4. We said that some letters have the sound when it has a fatha specifically. When some letters, when they have a fatha, they'll have a sound instead of a like the rest of the letters. So the kha was one of them. So that's why I highlighted it in blue. Only when it has a fatha, it will have a sound. So only when it has a fatha, I'll highlight it in blue. So kha instead of kha, kha, si, there's a sin that we spoke about, and the ra. Kha, si, ra. I'll try to say that. So that's good practice over there. And you'll see the letter ra is one of the most common letters that appears in words. The ra with the fatha, so you want to get used to that sound. Okay. The dhamma, it's going to be su. 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 Let's see in a word. Ja, and that's ba, su. Jabasu. Jabasu. Perfect. That should be simple. Let's do it. Let's apply the mid. Okay. Sa. Alif mad. When we're going to extend the sound to a. Sa. Sa. Let's see in a word. Here again we have the kha. Kha. Sa. And remember we said the mad letter, the mad will be pronounced with the letter before it as one unit. Right? So kha. Sa. And then there again we have another letter with the mad. Ra. Kha. Sa. Ra. Kha. Sa. Ra. You see the R sound, the R, then we go to the A. So that will be good practice. Practice with me. Here we have with the ya mad, the letter Sheen with a ya mad is going to be C. We're going to extend the E sound from C to C. And any word, remember the mad with the letter before it as one unit. So it's going to be C, Ru, C, Ru. Another mad there. Join them together. Siru, siru. Excellent. Here we have su, su. See in a word, su, ra, tu, su, ra. Remember the a, ra, tu, su, ra, tu. Perfect. Now let's, the last concept we spoke about was the sukoon, which is the no vowel. And we remember we said the sukoon will be pronounced in the exact same way as the mad. So it will be pronounced, the letter that has a sukoon, going to be pronounced with the letter before it as one unit or one syllable, right? So like one go, right? So let's do an example. Here we have a scene with a sukoon and a scene with no vowel. Remember, no sa, no si, no su, it's just s. Right? And then the letter before it is ha. We know that letter. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the ha with the s as one unit, as one syllable. Has. Like that. Has. And in a word, has bu. Has bu. Has bu. Like hasbunallah. Has bu. Okay. Here we go. Again, the scene with the sukoon. Before it is the letter ra, right? Ra with the fatha is the R sound like rock. Ra, 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 rock, ra. Excellent. Ros. So you see, ra, s, ros, ros as one unit, right? So if you say ras, it's okay, but the way with tajweed is to say it on the R sound there. Ros. Okay, and look in a word, da, ros, da as one unit, ros, and then ta at the end. Da, ros, ta, da, ros, ta, da, ros, ta, da, ros, ta. So it's a good way to practice words. Okay, the last word we have over here with a scene is, there's a scene with a sukoon. So that's the s. The letter before it is the tu. Right? So we're going to say the tu with s. It's one unit. Tus. 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 Okay, let's see in a word. There we have the tus. Tus. But now what's going on here? We have again a sukoon combination. So again, the letter with the sukoon, which is the b over there, with the ha before it as one unit. And we said in the last lesson that the letter ba and the jim and the dal, and we're going to do more examples to enforce it. When it has a sukoon, instead of saying like hab, we're going to add a lot of a bounce like hab, right? A b. So it will have more like a b, like biscuit, b, biscuit, b, hab, right? So tus hab instead of hab, and you can't hear the letter. So we're going to say tus hab, right? And that would be the tajweed way of saying it. And we'll do much more examples. If you're still struggling with that, let me say it one more time. Tus hab. Okay. Before we move on to the Sheen, do you find the examples helpful? Is doing the examples in class, is it helpful to you? Okay. Okay. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, Alhamdulillah. I'm glad that helps. I want to say something again about the ba with the sukoon that has that bounce sound, that b, the b. Actually, I think many of you have been applying it already without you knowing. Like if you know, take the word, many of us when we say the word sabr, like patience, you say have sabr. Why don't we say have sabr, sabr, right? Because it's supposed to be like that, sabr, because this ba has a sukoon there, but we say have sabr, sabr. What you're actually applying there is the jerking sound that we spoke about. You're actually literally applying there. It's a natural thing that happens when you pronounce a letter, right? And you're stopping on a letter like that, and the sound is completely shut, right? So to sound a letter, you're adding you're releasing a bit of sound, sabr, and that's the exact sound as well. Okay, hope you found that beneficial as well. Okay, the letter Sheen, in terms of the looks, it's the scene itself just with 3 dots on top. And we said the core part in terms of the shape is this over here, the 3 lines, right? That's how you identify it in words. The Sheen, as we can see from the beginning of its name, has a sh sound, almost like the sh. That's exactly the sound, like sh in ship. Okay, sh, ship, sh, sh. Can I have some 10 words with the sh sound in there, in the beginning, in the middle, at the end as well? Short, rushing, shine, hush. Okay, it's for shock, shield, perfect. Sheet, wish. Okay, then we have a word at the end. Brush, nice. Worship, shafia, bush, dish, sunshine, that's beautiful. Cash, let's get one more. Okay, I like that. Cash, the sound at the end. Rush, rush, cautious, that's the same sound. Yes, it's the Sheen sound. Perfect. So then none of us have a problem with the letter Sheen in terms of the sound. So let's apply quickly the 3 concepts that we learned. And remember, now we are really enforcing the concepts, and from applying it every time with all the letters, you will master the concepts, right? After a few lessons, inshallah, if you are still struggling with it. So let's look at the Sheen with the fatha is going to be sh plus a, sha, sha. Let's see in a word. Here's a big word. That's a very common word. Sha, ja, ra. You see again the ra, the fatha is a. Sha, ja, ra, tu. Okay, let's do it again. Sha, ja, ra, tu. Shajaratu. Shajaratu. That's a nice long word. That means 3. Okay, she. With a kasra. Sh plus e, she. Sorry, that's a typing error there. It's supposed to be she. Okay, and then we have hu, she, ra. See again the ra again. Ah, very common, this ra. Ra with a fatha is going to be the ah sound like ra. Rock, ra, rock, ra. Hu, she, ra. Hu, she, ra. And if you're still struggling with the letters like ha, then one of the best ways to get it right is to practice it in words many times. Every time you try to improve, but practice it in words, it's better than practicing it in isolation, because sometimes it wears your throat out. Sometimes you get tired, you get fatigued, and sometimes you kind of go in a circle where you can't get it. And sometimes when you practice it in a word, it suddenly comes out. So do a mix of practicing on its own and practicing it in words. Okay, Sheen with a dhamma, shu, shu, the sh plus the u, shu. Okay. In a word, we have this letter over here, the, that we've done in the last lesson. The, khu, the, khu, shu. The, khu, shu. The khushu. The khushu. Good. Let's apply the mid. So here we have the sh plus the a is sha plus the extended a sha sha. Okay, let's see in a word. Ta sha as one unit. Ta sha ba. Ta sha ba. Ta sha ba. Okay. Here we have the she, okay. In a word, she, as one unit, ru, bashiru, bashiru. Okay. With the dhamma, shu, plus the u extended, shu, shu. In a word, shu, ra, again a ra with the extension, not ra with the extension, ra, and we see the ra again appearing in words. Shu, ra, shura. Beautiful. And most of the words that we're doing, I'll say about 85 for now, are Quranic words, are actually words that you're going to read in the Quran. As we get more letters, there'll be more than until we get to 100% of the words are actually Quranic words. Let's do the sukun quickly. So the sheen. So if we have the sheen of the fatha, it's sh, sha, sh plus a, sha, plus the kasra, sh, I, she, dhamma, sh, u, shu. If we take away the a, I, u, we just have sh, and that's the sheen with the sukun. How do we read a sheen with a sukun? You have to read the sh sound with the letter before it. It's one syllable. So there the letter before it is ta, and the sheen is sh, ta plus sh, tash, 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 like tashrik, right? The name. Here we go. Tash, ra, bu, tash, ra, bu, tash, ra, bu, tash, ra, bu. Here we go. Same process. Sh plus the letter before it is bu, bush. Literally like bush, bush, bush. That's one sound. Bush, ra, bush, ra, bush, ra, bush, ra. Okay. There we go. Another example. Bash, bash. Remember not bash, because the fatha has a sound and not the sound. So we don't say bash. Like in English, we say in Arabic, it's going to be like a bash, right? Bash. In a word, and here I brought another example of the jerking sound that we spoke about. We said ba. Dal also as well has a jerking sound. So it's not going to be tad, tad, right? So the dal with the sukun is going to be da, like dusk, da, plus the ta, tad, tad, tad. And if you say tad, like I said, it's fine. It's still a dal, but the tajweed way to say it is tad. And then we have the bash. Tad, bash. Okay. Done with the sheen. I'm sure that was good practice. And you can, if you still need some more practice, go back to the video and repeat some of the words, and eventually the sound will come to you. Now we're moving on to the Saad and the Daad. The Saad and the Daad. Now, who struggle with, who of you that know this letter already or can read this letter or struggle with this letter? These two letters, let's say. Okay. Can I ask, now let's ask, okay, if you've been struggling with a letter, let's say especially the second one, how long have you been struggling with it? Like, could you say a week, a month? How long? 1 year, 2 years? Long. Always. Right? So this is important. Very long. Years. right? So we're hearing the same thing. This is important. My favorite word in Arabic is frog, very difficult to pronounce. Tifta. Okay. Now there's a reason why. There's a reason why non-Arabic speakers always struggle with this letter. But let me tell you this, right? It's not only non-Arabic speakers that struggle with this letter, Arabic speakers as well, because you have to differentiate between two things, between reading the letter with tajweed and reading it without tajweed. If you're speaking about these letters without tajweed, most of you can pronounce these letters in Arabic fine. Like if you pronounce the letters and you're going for, like say, a test where you want to do an Arabic course, you want to learn how to speak Arabic, they actually won't give you much trouble. They'll say, that's fine, it's pass, it's okay, it's good, that's Arabic, it's fine. As long because when you think about that modern standard Arabic, just speaking Arabic, as long as you can differentiate between the letter, for example, there are two letters that sound similar, as long as you can differentiate, that's fine, because it's just about getting the message across. However, when it comes to tajweed, that is where it becomes a little different. The letter sounds different because essentially, like we said, tajweed is about reading the letters eloquently as it was being pronounced in the time of the Prophet ﷺ during revelation, when the Arabic was most eloquently spoken. So tajweed is pronouncing the letters eloquently. So when we say, for example, how do you pronounce a tajweed? I mean, the letter, like what we can do now, little Saad with tajweed. We basically learn how to pronounce the eloquent Saad. And to say the letter Daad, now we're going to learn how to pronounce the eloquent Daad. Now, there's a reason why people struggle with this letter for many years. With learning any new pronunciation, naturally, you need a lot of practice. A lot of practice needs to take place. And that is why things can take years, right? But what happens is if you don't have kind of a strategy on, okay, how am I going to master this letter? Then it can take extended amount of time. So let me tell you this. These letters and another two letters that's coming, and in fact, all challenging letters, right? Generally, it will take a certain amount of time, not a short time, in order to master. However, what you want to do is you don't want that time to be years. You want that time to be a few weeks, maybe a month, maximum a few months. But you want to, every time you're pronouncing this letter, you're on the right track. So that is the purpose now, is want to get us on the right track so that we can, whenever we practice this letter, we are moving forward. And with that, we start. Let's look at the shape of these letters first, right? So the letter Saad over here, you can see it looks like kind of like this one, looks like a kind of like, some say it looks like a baby fish, this area here. I'll say look kind of like an eye mask, right? And this is half a circle. I'll just keep it at that, keep it simple. So look at in the word over here. Let's see how it joins. So when it's joined to the next letter, the next letter, you'll see that the tail falls away. Okay, and it connected joins, just like the other letters. Nothing fancy. In the middle of a word, same thing. The connected joins on the other side. The letter maintains its primary shape. And that's what you see over there in the red on top. That's the primary shape of the letter. Okay, at the end of a word, it keeps its original shape. And okay. And then the next letter, the letter Daad, right, looks the same, just with a dot. In the beginning of a word, we said it will lose its tail and it will get a connector. And remember, we just want to see the pattern. In the middle of a word, it will just be joined on the other side, maintaining its original shape. And at the end, it will generally maintain its full shape. And we can see over there, it's not joined to the previous letter because that is a semi-cursive letter before it. Okay, let's go on to the sound. Okay. So the letter Saad, and that's the name of the letter, Saad, and the sound is found in the beginning of the letter. Now, obviously, this letter don't have an English equivalent. Okay. It's like a heavy scene. We've done the letter scene just now. So the Saad is like a heavy scene, but we're going to see exactly how to do that. So firstly, before we see how to do the sound, let's see if there are any similar sounds in nature or in any other language. So I'll say it sounds kind of like a ball pump, especially if you're pumping wrong and you're pumping very hard, and make kind of like a deep sound that you hear because you're forcing the air through that narrow space and making that very kind of heavy, deep sound. Okay. Now, when we're going to pronounce this letter, we're going to start it with a fatha. And you'll see I made it in blue because the letter Saad, when it has a fatha, just like the letter Ra and Kha that we spoke about, it's also going to have an R sound. So you're going saw, not sa, saw, saw. So the first thing you need to know is on the R pattern. R, like R, Ra, rock, Ra, saw, same pattern. Okay, now here we go. Okay. I'm going to give you a few steps that you can use to practice this letter. And we want to see if you can get somewhat the sound out in this letter. Okay. First thing you want to do is you want to start with a letter Sheen, right? The sa sound, right? So sir, first say this with me. Say sa, sa, sa. Okay. Now make that sa sound into a ah. That's the second step. Oh, so so, 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 so. So that's literally a letter Sheen with an oh sound. So, so, so. Now whose Saad sound like that? Yes, like sock. So whose Saad actually sounds like this all the time? So, so like sock. So, so. Whose Saad sound like that? So, 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 so. Okay. Excellent. So if your sword sounds like so, you are halfway there. There is something that you need to do. There is something that is making the sound go from so to so, 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 so. So making the sound go from s to s, deeper sound. Do this with me, right? So what you need to do, your tongue, you need to make it like a spoon shape. So think of a spoon. So the front part of your tongue, the part that moves, that front part, right? You want to make it like the shape of a spoon. So the middle is going to drop at the bottom. It's going to be like you're holding like a spoon holding some water. So that's why it's like a heavy, right? And then you want it to be shaped like that. So do that. Now keep it like that and say that same sound. So, so. So your tongue will go on the top of your palate and and you'll say the letter like this. So, so, so. What is creating that deeper sound is that shape of your tongue. Your tongue must be like that and you need to release like that. So, instead of your tongue being flat like sa, so, so. Did anyone get a similar sound? Did that work for anyone? Are you getting a bit of a deeper sound when you do that? Yes, almost. Remember, you're not going to get it perfect. If you get it perfect, that's great. If you didn't get it perfect, you are going to get it perfect as long as you practice it some more. So let's practice some more. Yeah, right. So tongue flat, like we're saying a full scene. So, so, so. Now we want to do this with your tongue. So, so, so. Yes, you didn't know you can do it. You can do it and you can do all the letters that's coming. Because there are 4 letters that have the same pattern. As long as you're doing that, you're going to get the letter. Now, obviously, it takes some getting used to. That's fine. Okay, let's practice some more. So, so, so. Instead of so with a flat tongue, so, so. Do this like a spoon. So, so, so. It just makes the sound a bit heavy. Okay, did some of you get that? Okay, that's perfect. Let's do some words. Okay, so the little sort of the fatha is so, so, so. Okay, Now, I made this word, this is a very difficult word, right? Let's throw you in the deep end. Because after the Saad, you have a sukoon. So it means you have to pronounce the letter Saad with that letter as one unit. It's a sukoon with the letter before it as one unit. And that letter ba with the sukoon has a bounce. And this word means patience. So it's worth practicing this word, right? So sober, see, so plus the ba with the b, sober, 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 and then ra, sober, ra, sober, ra, sober, ra, sober, ra. Perfect. Okay. The Saad with a kasra, and this is generally going to be very difficult, right? But with practice, because you have to do the same thing. You have to start with your tongue like that and do the si, right? So your tongue need to stay like that. Si. Like when you said so, right? You're just going to say si, si. But your tongue have to do that. The si, if you want to make that the full heavy sound. Si. Okay. Si. Si. So what you need to get used to now is keeping the tongue like that. You will get used to it if you keep on practicing with this word. Let's see in a word. So here we have a letter with a mid. Ha, si, ba. Ha, si, ba. Ha, si, ba. Ha, si, ba. Si, ha, si, ba. Remember, if you're still struggling with it, that's fine, because this part, the purpose of this lesson is to get your tongue on the right track, and the rest will follow, because you want to have the tools to perfect the sound on your own, where you won't need me or anyone else to listen to your Saad every time if you have the tools. So let's do the Saad with a dhamma, right? So the sound with my tongue like this. Su, 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 su. Now the Saad with a dhamma, generally any letter that has that thing, it's hard to say with a dhamma. So you might come out challenging, but if you can somewhat say it, I would say you achieved amazing heights today. Okay, su, 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 instead of su. Su is with a flat tongue. Su, su, su. As soon as you do this, su, su, su. That's the only difference between the Sheen and the Saad in terms of sound. That the Saad tongue is like that when you're saying it like a spoon, and you're on the right track. Okay. Ba, su, rat. Ba, su, rat. Ba, su. Now, if you're still saying su like a Sheen, that's fine. Just practice some more. When you get to the Saad, you do that with your tongue. Su, ba, su, rat. Basurat. Okay. Let's try with the mid. So again, saw, with the R sound, saw, and in a word, ha, saw, di. Ha, saw, di. Ha, saw, di. I promise you, just keep practicing that, your tongue. And as you go along, the more you make your tongue in that shape, right? The more you get better at it. And this is when your letter will become really good. The more you become comfortable, the more you are able to make that cave in your tongue, like that bowl shape, the thing like a spoon. And the more perfect you get that strategy, the better the letter will come. The quality will improve naturally. So, ha, Sadi, Hasadi. Every one of you can pronounce this letter, inshallah. Some practice. Okay, again, same like si, but we're at the mid. Si. So we're starting off like that. Si, si, ba, si, ba, si, ra, ba, si, ra. The ra should have been blue because it's the R sound. My mistake. Basira, basira. You see, instead of basira, you see how the Saad, all you have to do is do that with your tongue. Everything else would fall in place. Basira, basira. You have to worry about nothing else besides dipping your tongue like a spoon shape. So it need to be a gap in the middle, heavy pull down in the middle, and the sound, the lip, right, need to be there because that's what need to kind of fit in there and force that, trap the air inside there so that you get that heavy sound. Okay. Su. With the vowel mat. Su. Su. Ta. Su. Ta. Su. Ba. Ta. Su. Ba. Okay. Now remember, we said with the sukun, generally, the challenges in the letter will surface. And I told you it's not a bad thing because the sukun will kind of show you exactly what this letter sounds like. So it will give you a chance to really get comfortable with the letter. It's like taking it to the next level. Okay. So now once we got that, right, that we need to read the Saad with that sound. So let's focus on that sound. So we have the S, and we do this with the tongue, it becomes so. And you see, it's if you feel your tongue, you feel that your tongue is like, you're working a lot of muscles in your tongue to keep it like that. And that's fine. And the more you practice that, the more you'll get used to it. But that's a Saad with a sukun. So now let's see a Saad with a sukun in some words. Here we go. The sound plus the letter before it as one unit. So the ta plus ta, tas, tas. So it's like saying tas, but when you come into the sound, your tongue should be in that shape. So tas, tas, tas. Worry about nothing else besides getting your tongue in that shape. Focus on that. Tas, tas. Okay. Tas, be, ru. Tas, yes. If you find yourself whistling, you'd have to send that to me, the sound of that, because this letter, one of the qualities, it does have a slight whistling sound, right? So that's actually good if you're hearing a whistling sound, but it just obviously shouldn't sound like a long or a loud whistling sound. But this letter does have a whistling sound. Tas, tas, be, ru. Tas, be, ru. Tas, be, ru. Okay. Here, another example, the Saad, with the letter before it at one unit, we have before it a ri plus the s, ri, s, ris. So it's the same like saying ris. If it was a s, a sin, but we're adding the tongue movement, so it's ris, ris, ris. Okay. Tah, ris, tah, the letter with sukun as one unit. Tah, ris. Okay. Tah, ris. Okay, let's move on to the last example over here. Saad with a sukun, so it's the s sound. Now, what's the sound made up of? It's just the s, normal with your tongue making like a spoon or bowl shape. But think of it like a spoon because it's the front part of your tongue, not your entire tongue. So, s, right? S, plus the two, tus, 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 tus. If you're struggling with that, that's fine. It's actually excellent if you try because that is how you're practicing your sound. Okay, let's do it in a word. Tus, tus, bi, hu. Tus, bi, hu. Tus, bi, hu. Tus, bi, hu. Okay, before we move on to the next letter, Daad, if you got the letter Saad, if you got it, the Daad is going to follow the same thing. So the more you come across these letters, the more you're going to get to practice that, what we just spoke about. Okay, who found that helpful? Did you find that way of pronouncing the Saad helpful? And remember, the measure is that, do you see a pattern, a breakthrough that you can use from here on to catapult, right, your journey through getting the Saad and the Daad, all the letters perfect, that has that quality? Yes, lots of practice needed, But if you manage to differentiate between the normal sound and the sound somewhat, it's really an amazing achievement. Why? Because I asked in the beginning, how long have you been struggling? How long have you been struggling with this letter? And many of you said years, right? And so that's the thing. We want to decrease that. So one of the qualities of this letter is that it have a whistling sound, but make sure that it sounds like, if you're hearing if it's something like what you're hearing from on my side, it's fine. That's fine. And you know what? If you are hearing the whistling sound, I can tell you, it actually means that you are actually possibly hearing the real sound perfectly and crisp and clear for the first time. So that's a good thing, because if you check in the books of the Arabic phonetics, the real books speaking about tajweed, they'll tell you that the letter Saad, Sheen, and Zay have a whistling sound. And you can hear that sound when you give it a sukoon. But it's most clear in the letter Saad. Let's go on to the letter Daad. Okay. So the letter Daad has no English equivalent. Its name is Daad. It's like a heavy dal. Okay. All right. Running out of time. So the letter Daad or the Fatha is going to be Da. Same like Sa, Ba, Ra, Kha. The letters that has the Ah sound. So the Daad is one of them. When it has a Fatha, it will have the Ah sound. Let's do the same process. Right? Let's do the same process. Let's go from Da, 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 Da. Just say like the dal, but on an ah sound. Da, da, da. Okay, whose Daad sound like that? Whose Daad sound like this? Da, 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 da. It's important that if it does sound like that, for you to recognize it so you can monitor the improvement. Okay, good. Da, da, da. Now let me tell you with full confidence that the reason why your da is sounding like that, your Daad is sounding like da, da, da instead of ba, 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 is the tongue. Again, make it like a spoon, right? The difference between the Daad though is just in the sound, right? Because you're going to really trap the sound. You're going to trap it, right? So the top palate, you keep it like a spoon, right? And you're going to trap it, right? And that's how the sound is pronounced, because it's like a plunger. So your tongue have to be like a plunger. And let's say like here, that's your palate top, the roof of your mouth is like, let's do it like this so you can see, sorry. Right? So what you're going to do is, your tongue is going to come like that, top of your mouth. So you're going to trap the air and release it like that. And that is how you're going to get that word, that sound. But the main thing is your tongue need to be curved. So let's try it. Flat tongue, da, da, da. Curve it a little, da, da, da. Right? So look at this. Da, da. Right? You see I'm trapping the sound with a curved tongue. Da, da. If your da don't sound like mine, is fine. As long as you're starting to hear difference from the da, da, da to da, da, da. Who can hear difference? It's fine if your cheeks move. Who can hear the difference when they curve their tongue a little? So instead of da, 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 ba, 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 ba. Can you hear that? Ba, 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 ba. Instead of da, 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 ba, 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 da, 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 ba, ba, ba. Okay. What else? What else? Who can hear no difference? If anyone cannot hear any difference, tell us as well. Let us know. But generally, like I said, you want to focus on your tongue, right? Now, it might be a challenge because maybe in English or whatever language you normally speak, you might not always get that where your tongue is moving or using your tongue in that heavy way, all your tongue muscles. So if you're struggling, know that it's fine because your tongue need to get used to it. It's fine. You can't force it, right? There's many sounds in different languages that I tried. I still can't get it because I never put in the work to practice the sound and train the muscles. But with this, Keep the tongue like a spoon and trap the air. Do. When you release, that's how the do is going to come, because the do is a strong letter, right? Because you're trapping the air and you're releasing. Do. Whereas it looks like, see, the air is flowing. So it's not that. But with a do, you can only pronounce it if you trap the air, do, and you release. But the tongue need to be bowl-shaped. Otherwise, you're not going to get that bo sound. Okay. So some of you guys got it, you say. Some improvement. You're seeing where you're getting with the letter Daad. Okay. Let's try the letter Daad with the harakat, right? And this is how we're going to apply what we've done. Okay, so keep on doing that. So with the Daad with the fatha is going to be da, 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 da. In a word, da, da, ra. You see the ra is also on the a, ba. Da, ra, ba. Daraba. Daraba. Now, if you're still saying daraba, just focus on the dot and do that with your dot, and like I say, enforce it a bit, right? So you're going to force it out because you're going to pull some air in there, trap it and release. Daraba. Daraba. Da, 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 because of the tongue. Okay. Da with the kasra, this is very difficult. You don't have to worry because a dad with a kasra don't appear in Arabic in general so much. It don't appear in the Quran so much, but we have to, it does appear nevertheless, so we'll practice it, right? Same thing. Ha, ri, di, di, di. So instead of D, if you're still saying D, 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 what you need to do is curve your tongue like a spoon, right? And like a plunge the sound. So you're going to put the top of your mouth and you're going to curve it, trap the sound and plunge. D, 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 right? Haridi, 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 D, D. Instead of D, 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 D. Okay. With the Dhamma, again, it can be challenging at first, but as you get used to curving your tongue quickly in that shape, it's going to get much easier. Okay? Do, 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 do. So do, ri, bat. Do, ri, bat. Do, ri, bat. Do, ri, bat. Remember, it's easy to say do ri, bat with like a do sound, and that's fine, you know, but the tajweed Daad, you need to do that, become a bit of a strong, and as you get used to it, it's going to get easier. Do, ri, bat. Do, ri, bat. So someone's saying, no, not at all. So it don't come from the throat, right? It comes from your tongue. It comes from that port. So your tongue is like this, right? And your top palate there. It's really coming from that sound there inside, right? By your tongue touching the gums there on top, but tapping that sound. Do, do, do. Okay. Hari, di. Someone say it sound like I'm saying a di. That's fine because the di and the di are very close to each other and they do sound very similar. When I say it sounds like D and the together, that's fine. Now this is very good and this is very exciting, right? So I love this. So what many of you are experiencing now is that you are experiencing the crisp and the Daad coming about, right? It's coming about, and that's fine. Your tongue is getting used to it. So if you're saying it more like a the, that's fine, because what's happening when you say the, you still air is still escaping, right? Because you haven't closed it completely. The, so it's more like the. So there's a little air coming in. What you need to do is trap the air completely and say the, right? And that will come. So keep on practicing. When you tell me these things, it's good news, right? It means that we are getting somewhere. Let's try them with the mid, right? More practice, right? So bo, bo, so like bo, 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 same thing. Bo, elongate. Seen a word, so that's supposed to be a D. Sorry about that. Ri, Do, ri, do. The only thing I'm doing that you can't see is my tongue. That is why if you just watch my mouth, you're not going to really know what it is I'm doing. However, it is the tongue that is the biggest factor that you need to do before considering anything else about the letter, about what am I doing wrong. First thing is that tongue. Rida, rida. And if you're saying like a rida, that's actually a very common mistake, is that the Daad is pronounced as Zod, right? So what you want to do is go back to the sound, right? And keep the sound trapped. Da, 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 right? Don't let any E escape. Okay. With the mad, with the ya mad, we're going to have ya. The, like I said, these combinations are not found in many words. In the Quran, it doesn't occur very much, very rare. Nevertheless, you still practice it. It's the same concept, right? The, it's the same like saying D, however, the tongue again. The. Now it might be difficult to tap that E in there. I know, right? But when you practice, I promise you will get it. The, because with a Daad, you kind of need to trap A first in order to be able to say it. So it's like the, and that's part of why it's so challenging. But I think you guys are making good improvement. I mean, in a few minutes, if you can already make some steps towards it, I want to you guys keep me up to date. But how you are doing with the Daad, I'm hoping that in a few weeks, inshallah, it will be good, right? The, the. Don't be intimidated by the sound and by how I look when I'm saying it or how I say it. You just focus on your tongue and making a different sound between the D and a heavier more D. D. The tongue is the only difference. Okay, here we go. With the Dhamma, do. Again, it's the same like do, however, the tongue, do. Only difference is the tongue. So remember that. Do. If your teeth are blowing up, that's fine. It's also because you're getting used to the letter. The letter might be, you're not be used to pronouncing such a powerful letter, right? So it's just a natural reaction. Do. As you get more proficient at the letter, you will know, right? Do. Even tongue, your tongue need to get used to it, right? It's fine. So you need to focus on the keep the and if it's still coming more flat, try to keep it more bowl shaped, more curvy. Do ri ba do ri ba do ri ba. Okay, lots of practice needed on this letter, but if we made some improvement today, we achieved. Let's do with the sukoon. Now, obviously, we said with the sukoon, the challenges come out. Now, if we're dealing with supposedly the most challenging letter in the Arabic language, obviously this is going to be difficult. But I want to say, don't panic. Let's apply what we've learned. Okay, we know the letter with the sukoon has no a, I, u. So, do, di, do. So it's just going to be. Now, it's obviously, you cannot pronounce it on its own. So let's go with the letter before it. So the ta and the tell. Now, let me say this. It's the same as saying Ted, for example. Ted, but your tongue. So when you land on the D sound, your tongue want to be in that shape. Tell, and you won't hear the difference much when it has a sukoon. But nevertheless, that is how you say the sukoon. So this is something to practice, right? So try that. Remember the tongue. So from the ta to the do, tell. You want to make sure when you land on the board, your tongue is in that shape. Tell, no jerking sound. No jerking sound. Now that's an advanced question, Riza. I'm going to answer the question at the end. Why don't the sound with the letter have a jerking sound? It's a very special letter, right? So tell No jerking sound. Tell. Okay. Tell. Here we go. Tell. Ri. Bu. Tell. Ri. Bu. Tell. Ri. Bu. Okay, let's do another example. There's a Daad, the sukoon, with a ra before it. So a ri plus the rid, rid. Now what's the difference? It's same like saying rid, like Ridwan, but the word, actually the name Ridwan is actually with a Daad. So it's actually Ridwan. Now you cannot see what I'm doing inside my mouth. So that's where it becomes intimidating. Which is like, okay, what is the difference? Why am I saying it wrong and you saying it different, but we look the same? I mean, you're doing some movements with your lips, but let me tell you, it is the tongue, right? So you just keep on working on that. Read, when you land on the sound, instead of read, 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 right? As long as you're trapping, right, A in that shape over there, that it creates that sound that read, very powerful letter. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I see there's a bit of mistake. Okay, tab ha, tab ha, tab ha, tab ha, tab ha. Yes. No. If you feel like you're gonna, yeah, if you might feel like you're gonna throw up. That is why I don't advise practicing difficult letters on one. Like for an hour, let's just a Daad. You need to give it a break, go to Elliot and come back. You could say it sounds like you're throwing up. If, like I say, it's relative, so it might sound like that's someone else. You can let me know. Okay, here we go again. 2 plus the two, 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 right? Again, tud will be like a dal. Tud. If you're sounding like that, tud, fine. Focus on trapping the e when your tongue is in that shape. Tud, tud, tud. Guaranteed that your sound will improve and come more towards the eloquent Daad. Tud, that's fine. Even me, like if I do it, I can feel this deliberate movement of my tongue, and my tongue feel worked. It really feel worked. Now, what you can do is I'm emphasizing so that you can hear and get exactly, because if you, especially if you're going to watch this video over, I have to say it as best as I possibly can. However, you can take it lightly to maybe try that. Go a bit lighter. Don't become stressed. Don't become overworked. Just to try to lightly just curve your tongue and the Daad will come out. Inshallah. Here we go. Let's see in a word. Who, right? It's not matching with the combination on top. That's fine. Who plus the Daad. Khud, 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 ra. Again, the difference between khud and khud is the tongue. That's trapping the A in that shape. Khud, ra. Now, I want to say this. That brings us to the end. I want to say this to those who are still struggling with this letter. That is why I asked in the beginning of this, before doing this letters, how long are you struggling with this letters? How long? If you didn't get it right yet, that's fine. If you at least, you can say, look, I know how to improve my letter now. I know how to practice. You 100% achieve what you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to end the recording and I'll continue some questions. Inshallah, I hope you guys found it beneficial.